Hello, everyone. This is Brad Rye, Senior Partner at Eric Mower & Associates, welcoming you to another EMA Business-to-Business webinar. This is the second in our series. The topic for today is challenger brands and making them successful against leader brands. In the next 45 minutes, you'll hear two experts who have lived the challenger brand life and will give us an inside look at the trials and the triumphs of facing a Goliath and winning. And you'll have a chance to ask them questions throughout the program and send them in via the Q&A area on the bottom of your screen. Hosting us today is John Favalo, Managing Partner at EMA's Group B2B, and himself a seasoned challenger brand marketer. John, take it away.
Hey, thanks, Brad, and thank you all for joining us today for a deep dive into the fascinating topic of challenger brands and how they can outthink, outsmart, outflank, tick off, and generally make life miserable for leader brands. Joining us today is Jan Martin, Senior Manager of Business Communications at Domtar Paper Company, and Mike Gambino, Management Consultant and former VP Marketing and President of Legrand, Passon Seymour. Both of these experts have survived and thrived facing significant challenges. You'll love their insights. Jan and Mike, thanks for being with us today.
Hey, thanks for the invite, John.
Thank you, John. It's a pleasure to be here.
I think the best place for all of us to start is on common ground with a generally accepted definition. Back in 1999, Adam Morgan wrote the groundbreaking book on challenger brands titled Eating the Big Fish. In it, he called challengers this: a second-rank brand that had demonstrated growth in the face of a powerful and established brand leader. Leader brands are the big fish that can drive a category. In fact, in many cases, leader brands become the default identity for the product category. Said another way, they become the category convention. For some of us, that definition immediately spikes recall of the rental car business years ago and the Hertz-Avis rivalry. At that time, Hertz defined the rental car business. It was the clear leader. Every other rental car company was a follower until Avis ran this ad. How well I remember. While this was the dawn of competitive positioning strategy, it was also the birth of a challenger brand. Little scrappy Avis up against the 800-pound gorilla Hertz, trying harder to win some of our business. When this campaign broke, almost instantly, there were two players in rental cars, not just one. Let the challenger games begin. There have been many leader-challenger examples over the years. Here are a couple more contemporary examples you'll recognize instantly. The common earmarks are convention and the disruption. Most people know Oakley as the maker of innovative sunglasses, but now it also makes sports performance equipment, apparel, backpacks, and more. Oakley is the challenger. The convention here in the sunglasses category were the leaders, like Foster Grant and Ray-Ban. The convention, well, it was that these brands could make you look sexy and mysterious and cool like a Hollywood star. Oakley, however, positioned itself as the outlier brand, that disruptive sunglasses brand that looked way different and made you look way different, like a renegade athlete who could back up all the boast and the bravado with superior performance. Another example. Under Armour got its start with a T-shirt for sports teams. The shirt was different because it would wick away perspiration. Today, Under Armour makes sports clothing, shoes, sportswear, and casual apparel. Nike was the category convention in athletic wear. Back when the Just Do It campaign broke, Nike wanted to reach an audience far broader than athletes. For Nike, that meant promoting sport and athletics to everyone. It meant getting out and doing something active, and in the process, achieving something personally. No excuses, just do it. The disruption? Under Armour was the upstart with the attitude. The challenger that, right out of the gate, focused on the male and his resolve to win. Under Armour wanted to project that determination in a way that felt like being on the home team, on the home turf, and waiting for that bigger, badder visiting team to descend on them. Under Armour wanted to make male competitors feel like an athlete feels when he's challenged. So do all challenger brands follow these examples? Well, as I have experienced, and as we'll learn today, a leader brand can become a challenger when they break into a new business category. FedEx is a leader brand we all know, but it became a challenger against UPS when it started FedEx Ground. So today, we'll have a look at these two sides of challenger brands, pure challenger like Avis and leader challenger like FedEx. We'll see it through the eyes of experts who have helped create them and manage them. We'll learn why being a challenger can be as interesting and fun as being a leader. We'll see the earmarks of a challenger and how they can be used as leverage. We'll hear about strategies that vault challenger brands up the food chain and enable them to eat the big fish. Finally, you'll lock up some best practices and be ready to put them to work in your next marketing and communications plan. Okay, so let's go. It's my honor to introduce Jan Martin, Senior Manager of Business Communications at Domtar Paper Company. Domtar is a leader in paper products. One of its most familiar products is office copy paper. And Mike Gambino, Management Consultant and former President of Legrand's Pass & Seymour brand of wiring devices, which we most commonly recognize as the electrical switches and receptacles on our walls. Both Domtar and Pass & Seymour are great examples of brands that challenge convention and the big fish in their categories. Welcome, Jan and Mike, and glad you could join us today.
Thank you. Been looking forward to this.
Likewise.
Thanks. So both of you have some great stories about the brands you've led and managed. But before we get into the nuts and bolts of Pass & Seymour and Domtar Paper, let's talk for a minute about Apple, another great challenger brand, which today is a leader. Mike, what impresses you most about Apple? As a business manager, what jumps out at you as genius strategy?
Well, John, Apple to me is a great example of a technology company who became a style, fashion, and application icon. In doing so, they became a global company to the masses versus a kind of a computer company to the education and creative communities. Apple truly stands alone now, and as we can all know, it's profiting enormously from its position that it's gained.
Jan, how about you? Do you agree? As a communicator, what do you think Apple did right as a brand?
Well, I definitely agree. And what I think Apple did right was master the 4 P's of marketing. First one is product. Apple makes great products, groundbreaking products that consumers didn't even know they needed. And secondly is price. Apple continually is the price leader, and it can get an even higher price because of the perceived higher value. And then thirdly is place. Apple plowed new ground with iTunes, not to mention the Apple Store and its Genius Bar. And then lastly is promotion. Apple continually breaks through with campaigns like Think Different and even the Mac versus PC.
You bet. And look what that transformation and mastery has achieved. Today, Apple has the highest brand value in the world at $247 billion, according to the research firm Millward Brown's Brands study. Apple's market cap is over $630 billion, which amazingly is $215 billion more than its annual sales and total assets put together. Now that is one valuable brand. And yet, Apple had its bruises. Mike and Jan, do you remember when Apple wasn't maybe so shiny?
John, honestly, and I believe Apple would probably hope this, I really don't remember much of the old Apple very well. Outside of thinking they were a niche computer company, not mainstream, so very different than I think of Apple today.
Jan?
Does anyone remember the Newton message pad? Not a very functional product and not a shining moment for Apple.
Oh, Jan, I remember. I had a Newton, and to me it wasn't even a bruised apple. It kind of bordered on rotten. Anyway, looking back 30 years, Apple was a real challenger brand in the making. Apple started off very small, selling computer boards and wooden boxes. It got bigger, faster, and became known as a computer for schools, and then even after school. But things changed when Steve Jobs left the company in 1985. Apple lost its luster and lost its way. Reporters were writing about the impending demise of Apple and how it would wither away. Compounding the problem was IBM. Imagine an Apple computer in 1985 competing against IBM, whose income was over $50 billion, to Apple's sales of just under $2 billion. So what stands out about the competitive situation at the time, Mike?
Well, it's the classic David and Goliath story. How do you challenge the giant? It was a wonderful opportunity for the creative team and Steve Jobs.
Yeah, you bet. Jan, what do you say?
Well, I always liked the idea of IBM against Apple as the blue suits versus the blue jeans, and it says a lot about the differences between their personalities, their attitudes, their business approaches, and culture.
Yeah, blue suits versus blue jeans, I love that comparison. So Steve Jobs returns to Apple some 10 years later with a charge for the company and for the advertising agency Chiat Day. Jobs had a vision for Apple that needed time to realize. His vision called for new kinds of products and a magnetic, competitive posture that would attract the kind of customer that matched his vision. Jobs said to Chiat Day, "Give me an interim campaign. Give me a campaign that prepares the world for what Apple will be and the new products we will launch. And go out and find me the customers who will demand these products and wait for them until they're ready for sale." At that time, IBM was running an advertising campaign called Think IBM. Chiat Day came back with this campaign for Apple, the Challenger.
Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them, but the only thing you can't do is ignore them, because they change things. They push the human race forward. And while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.
Here's to the crazy ones. Well, to me, this is one of the best challenger branding campaigns ever. It doesn't sell products, it sells the vision. Jan, what in Think Different stands out to you?
Think Different stands out in the way it targets its core audience through the messaging. Apple wanted to attract a certain kind of person, and the campaign allows that person to self-identify.
Thanks. Mike, what's so smart about this campaign to you?
I think the Chiat Day campaign sets up what Apple is going to be, a very, very, very different technology company.
Absolutely, and Think Different so well reflects so many of Adam Morgan's 8 credos of challenger brands. Here they are, the things that Morgan believed challengers must adopt to be successful. Apple broke with the immediate past, those years when Jobs was out and Apple lost focus, and began a renewed course of action. It used advertising and public relations as a leveraged asset, and in the doing so, built a lighthouse identity. By using icons like Picasso, Henson, Lenin, and the others, Apple offered symbols of the reevaluation of how we should think about personal computers. And Apple sacrificed. It did not try to attract everyone who could use a PC. It targeted a certain type of customer, the kind of person who saw themselves as creative, as innovative, or as people who could be with the help of Apple products. Another great point here is about being idea-centric, not consumer-centric. Jobs and Apple believed in creating products consumers didn't know they needed or wanted. The product idea was everything. Good example is the iPod and the breakthrough product introduction that closely followed the Think Different campaign, the iMac. As mainstream as Apple is today, I still believe it follows the Challenger model, remaining creative, agile, and pretty darn cool. Jan, Domtar Paper. Tell us a little bit about Domtar, the company.
Well, Domtar is North America's largest manufacturer of copy and printer paper. We're an industry leader working with the Rainforest Alliance, World Wildlife Fund, and other groups to make sure we meet the rigorous standards of the Forest Stewardship Council. And Domtar also provides the paper pulp that goes into products that people use every day, from baby diapers to paper towels.
Thanks, Jan. So tell us, what was the business situation facing Domtar? Why did Domtar decide that it needed a marketing and communication strategy that would change conventional thinking?
Well, for us, paper was just getting a bad rap. Domtar was facing declining paper use because of the negative misinformation about the sustainability of paper and the big push to go paperless. The please consider the environment before you print was showing up in corporate email signatures across the globe, and it was clear there was a lack of education about the positive benefits of paper and cognitive and environmental. No one in the industry was taking a stance for the value of paper.
Very, very interesting, Jan. Clearly a challenging situation. What difficulties did you encounter?
Well, first, we had to challenge a movement, the push to go paperless. That in itself was a huge challenge. Plus, we also had to overcome a lack of brand awareness. The average person wasn't familiar with Domtar because so much of what we produce is private label. And we had to be strategic in identifying our target audience because we didn't have the marketing budget to reach everyone.
Got it, Jan. Hey, Mike, let's hear from you. Pass and Seymour makes electrical wiring devices like wall switches, plugs, receptacles, lighting dimmers, and the like. Distributors sell them to contractors. Contractors install them in homes and buildings. Back when you came on board as VP Marketing of Pass and Seymour, you had to challenge the leaders like Leviton or Dye. Why? What was the situation you faced? Why was it so dire?
Well, Pass and Seymour was a very quiet 100-year-old company. It was quiet in brand. It was quiet in market. It was quiet in product. And very nice people inside the company. A fairly broad product offering, though it had some holes. It was set in the market as primarily a second source. Owned by a world leader in wine devices out of France, Legrand, which is a multi-billion-dollar company. At the time, there were 5 key suppliers in the industry, and Pass and Seymour was number 4 in revenue, and it was not profitable.
It sure looks like the marketplace was crowded, Mike. Was Pass and Seymour a challenger?
Well, kind of like I said, John, it was so quiet. Pass and Seymour was not a challenger at the time. I mean, our job was to make it a profitable challenger, one who the industry knew was going to last and not stay where it was positioned.
So what were the key difficulties you had to overcome in doing that and trying to make that happen?
I think a big one that's probably normal in most companies is coming to consensus about where we really stood in the market and about what customers really thought about us, about what we were good and bad about, and then do the same thing for our competitors. It's kind of a situation analysis, but I call it a very honest situation analysis. Also, was it possible that we could determine if there was a void to market? Among the core competencies of the players, was there an opportunity to excel that really wasn't being taken advantage of that could fit us? At the same time, we had to prioritize some breadth and opportunity areas in the product offering to alleviate those holes. And lastly, we had to look deeply at our operations and structure to just understand our cost and capabilities.
So as I listened to both of you, the word commodity lit up for me like Times Square at nighttime. Plugs, switches, and wall plates, copy paper, sounds like commodities to me. Also sounds like other EMA clients like Nucor Steel or Southwire Wire and Cable. Talk about commodities, steel is steel and wire is wire. To me, challengers and commodities are very similar. Those two situations often are ruled by conventional wisdom. The biggest players can drive the flow of the industry. Example, if the big player in a commodity category raises prices, that gives all the competitors permission to raise prices as well. If one major commodity brand starts selling online, then others can follow. There is a sameness of behavior in a commodity category, just as there is when a leader dominates a category. So Mike and Jan, what are your thoughts about commodity marketing and challenger brands? Mike?
I think choosing to participate as a commodity and letting like supply, demand, and availability only determine your future is very different from building a valuable brand. You know, something that has clear differentiation from competition, even though the functionality of the products may be very similar.
Jan?
It's simple. Domtar makes pulp and paper. Both are commodities. Moreover, the Domtar brand is often invisible. I mean, paper in a copier or a pulp as a component of a diaper, who can see Domtar? To the average person buying copy paper for home or office, price plays an important role, and it's really difficult to distinguish your brand from the competition when you are both selling a virtually identical product. And although all paper might appear to be the same, not all paper companies source materials from sustainably managed forests like Domtar does. How do you change the mindset that paper is bad to paper is good? As I mentioned, it's a huge challenge.
So Jan, in Domtar's case, you talked about a tough situation. How did the Domtar team approach the problem? How did it challenge conventional wisdom?
Well, John, there were two major aspects to our challenger strategy. No one was advocating for the paper industry, and we knew we had an opportunity to create a demand for paper that would also benefit our channel partners, such as printers and converters. Even if our pricing was higher than the competitor, we were confident that our customers would appreciate our efforts for the industry and would want to continue their business with us. So we started looking at the world from 30,000 feet to see what kind of impact current trends had on people and how they were feeling, and how being connected via digital actually left people feeling disconnected. We did a market analysis, we conducted a competitive audit, and designed and implemented a qualitative online survey of paper purchasers nationally, as well as a qualitative in-depth interviews with opinion influencers. And through our research, we discovered that these key triggers that would overcome barriers to purchase, and they included reading information on paper instead of a screen boosts learning and retention, and handwriting on paper improves cognition, and sometimes paper is simply the best way to communicate a message and express creatively. And lastly, responsibly sourced paper actually results in more trees, not fewer. So we created a campaign called Paper Because, which advocated for the responsible use of paper. It was a new endeavor for Domtar as well as for the paper industry. And for this campaign to succeed, we needed to uncover the triggers that would overcome usage barriers, leverage those findings to create a brand platform, and reach influencers and decision makers. So we created an integrated mix of digital, video, guerrilla/viral marketing, PR, social media, packaging, and print. And we used research to support our position that paper is an effective way to learn, communicate, keep track of important documents, and help maintain the health of our forest. And I believe you have a couple of ads that reflect that strategy that you can show.
Yeah, talk about easier to learn.
Right. This ad dramatizes how paper improves the ability to learn and remember. And then the other one is, this ad talks about the power of direct mail in stimulating a purchase.
Geez, those are terrific, Jan. But I and thousands upon thousands of others out there love the Domtar videos. We're going to share a couple with our audience. They're called Ration and Black Market.
In an attempt to eventually go paperless, we're going to begin to ration it out. Everyone will receive 5 sheets of paper for the month.
And here comes Black Market.
I really need some more of that stuff you got me last week.
Hey, not here.
I know, but I got this deadline and I'm really stressed and I need it bad.
Okay. Shh, follow me.
Okay.
This is the last time I'm doing this.
I need 20. I really need 20.
Hey, you're busted. Hold it right there. Hand that paper over right now. Give me that. Sherman, put this into evidence. You paper pushers make me sick.
Please let me have some paper.
So Jan, these are so very funny. But in the B2B world, as you know, you find a lot more serious messages very often. These videos are anything but serious. Why did you take this route?
Well, we recognize that humor can be an effective way to disarm an audience and make them more receptive of a message that really challenges their mindset. Therefore, many of the videos use humor to deliver the campaign message. And what's more is we are big believers that print and pixels should complement each other. Some of the audience might see our videos online, and we hope they share it in social media. It's important to let people know that it isn't any either-or case with digital and paper.
It's a fantastic, just a fantastic execution there, and it was a pleasure for me to see from the inside as EMA worked with Domtar to build the strategy and the tactics. Hey, Jan, a question just came in from our audience, and it asks, what of the 8 Challenger brand credos did Domtar adopt?
Well, there are 2 that stand out. Through our campaign, we took the thought leader position for the entire paper industry, and of course, we used advertising and PR to leverage that point.
Excellent. Okay, back to you, Mike. When you were managing marketing for Passon Seymour, you came on board at a time when the brand was second tier at best, and in some cases a third or fourth in brand preference. Also at that time, there was a wave of consolidation in the distribution channel. Distributors were looking to cut the number of lines on the shelf, which put second-tier brands like Passon Seymour at risk. For Passon Seymour to survive, it had to do something drastic. What was it?
Well, as we mentioned earlier, John, we really wanted to find out if there were any voids to market among our competitors in their core competencies. And we thought there was. There was really no competitor who excelled in customer service. I mean, really was out there far ahead of anybody. We kind of had a price-cost leader. We had an everywhere distributed player that was huge. And we had a product innovator. But we didn't have anybody excelling in customer service. And at that time, as you mentioned, distributors themselves who have slim bottom lines, they average probably 2 to 4%, were aggressively understanding their cost of doing business. And when we looked at their manufacturers who were servicing them, they were getting many, many shipments to complete an order, so they started off with poor fill rates. They had many mistakes on wrong items shipped or billed incorrectly, and they had difficulty in making stock adjustments. As we started to think about that, that could be all part of positioning Passon Seymour as the ultimate in service. And so the key for us, though, could everything be measurable? We thought if a core competency was going to stand out, you had to have metrics that were loud and clear and were measurably better than anybody else. Not close, measurably better. We knew we could be significantly better after we got a bearing on where everybody was than our competition. We truly wanted to, if somebody were to go out to a distributor and they would ask which manufacturer is doing the best job for you, that by and large they would answer the question, no matter, not talking about wine devices, talking about all of their manufacturers, that Passon Seymour was the choice. So we wanted our customers to brag about us. That's when we wanted to develop this Passon Seymour Cornerstone commitment, which was throughout the entire organization and spelled the deliverables and guarantees that we would live to with our distribution. This in turn drove our whole operation strategy and product development strategy. You know, when you talk about products, we were going to live in the shoes of our customers. Advisory groups became second nature to us with electrical contractors and electrical distributors. We filled out the product lines with innovative twists on traditional products by following this customer-intensive focus. Sales grew and so did profitability.
All good news. Thanks, Mike. In our experience with challengers and commodity brands, we've learned a lot about how to create more value. So in this context, here are a few tips that worked really, really well. As Mike said about Pass and Seymour, live with customers to see what they do at work and how they do it. Watch how they use products. Find out what troubles they have on the job with your products or associated with your products or someone else's. Here's an example from our client Southwire. Today, the electrical contractor is aging, and moving wire around a job site is very strenuous and taxing work. Southwire developed a line of products that make handling the wire easier and faster and far less strenuous, adding more value to the wire itself and the Southwire brand. Now, we're going to run the video that would appear on your phone once you scan that print ad. And here's a simulation shooting the print ad to drive a digital experience and a product demonstration. Traditionally, wire on a job site came in big, heavy reels. The Southwire coil pack reduced the size and made it easier to carry and still see how much wire was left. The way it was situated on the reel made it easier to pull, made it easier to connect, and made it far easier to work on the job site, as the demo shows. And it was that easy. So coil pack is a product that's really driving change in a very, very traditional industry. Here's another tip. Find out what the customer thinks will never change. Could be a low-price commodity product that everyone uses, or could be a way of doing business that everyone just accepts. And speaking of accepting, take time to learn about the products that customers accept as the way it's always done. But also, find out what bothers the customer about using these products. Now surprise everyone and take that product and make it better. In fact, why not create a best category for a product that never existed before? The way Mike and the team at Pass and Seymour did with Trademaster. Trademaster answered every complaint electricians had about receptacles and became a product category spokesman for all intents and purposes. Okay, another tip. Dig real deep into the brand, the company, how the products are made, and what they are made with. Scour around among the things that make the company special, but that no one ever saw as an advantage. Like Nucor steel, for example. Think steel. For Nucor, all the steel they made is sourced from recycled steel. We leverage that in ads like, "It used to be a minivan," and that Nucor helped pay the cost of higher education for every Nucor employee in good standing. As we told in the ad there, why kids want to be in the steel business. In a world of selling steel by the pound or by the ton, Nucor sold steel by its purpose, and in the process created marketplace advantage. Here's another tip. Attack the myths. Oftentimes, the conventional wisdom in a commodity category or in a leader-challenger situation drives behaviors. Sometimes what people accept as true simply isn't. Sometimes behaviors can change if you attack the conventions. Domtar did it so well. We attacked the myths surrounding paper and its uses and told great stories about how important paper remained in people's lives. Jan, give us a sense of what the result of this campaign was.
The campaign was an immediate success. Among office workers exposed to the campaign, Domtar awareness increased by an astounding 650%, with intent to purchase doubling from 13% to 25%. And the videos have been viewed by hundreds of thousands of people, and the conversation about the campaign, it still continues on social media. By advocating for paper in general, we actually created preference for the Domtar brand of paper.
Outstanding. So my advice for building value from commodities, don't accept that everything is the same, because it just isn't. Dig for the differences, and typically you'll find them in the brand, its culture, and its customers. Okay, panelists, we're in the home stretch. Jan, boil it down for us. What are the most what are the most important things that a challenger brand needs to do to be successful?
Well, price wars don't have to be the solution in a commodity category, and if marketing dollars are limited, targeting is crucial.
Outstanding. Mike, how about you? What lessons did you learn from challenging the leaders in your category?
I think number one, it's important to be brutally honest about where you stand, and also your competition. I think you've got to determine your core strength position, and it must be evidently better than competition. And then the objective is to get closer to your competition on their strengths, so that it's more difficult for them to be measurably better than you. Lastly, you got to have all the teams on board. All your associates must be on board. The metrics and goals got to be directly tied to them, whether you have incentive plans across the company or across individuals. It's all got to be tied to where you're trying to position this company.
Great advice. Mike and Jan, thank you very, very much. You enlightened us all. And as you were talking, some questions popped up. Mike, this one came in for you. How long did it take for Pass & Seymour to become a challenger brand, and was Pass & Seymour a successful challenger?
I guess if you think about it, it was probably about 2 years. We started to achieve our objectives of being the absolute best in customer service. By the third year, this cornerstone commitment that we had to distribution was kind of winning every service award in the industry. The Trademaster product introduction that we referenced was a huge success, and it started our living in the shoes philosophy of new products to come. I guess when you get right down to distributors start to position us in a number one stocking position versus the number two or not even stocking us, and that's when sales and profits started moving in the right direction at Pass & Seymour.
Oh, thank you. Jan, a question for you came in. You mentioned doing research before launching the campaign. What did you learn about people's attitudes towards paper? What seemed to tell you Domtar could make a case?
Well, there was a general public movement to move towards digital overall. Then you had corporations saying, don't print this email. You had children being educated that paper kills trees. And we at Domtar, we knew that we had a great story to tell about the usefulness of paper. And for us, it was not about picking a fight with digital. It was about how they complement one another and the responsible use of paper.
Okay. Very good. Mike, another one just came in for you. You mentioned that there were 5 major players in the product category. Once Pass & Seymour started its Challenger campaign, what did the other competitors do? Did they retaliate in any way?
I'd say retaliation really just came from the number one player, and it was it was a half-hearted attempt at a service marketing commitment to distribution. So it was a large company. When the commitment wasn't across their entire company, it never really gained any traction, and so it just kind of faded away. Another competitor was acquired by another one. It was starting to have trouble losing market share and its profitability, and it was acquired. And even today, you think about it's almost 20 years later, Pass & Seymour is now identified in every player as a number 2 player in total revenue, probably it leads on many of the industry initiatives, and it's still growing in revenue and industry-leading profitability.
Thanks. And another for Jan. One of the key points you made was targeting. What audiences did you decide to target and why?
Well, we targeted key influencers and decision makers, and that's why we placed ads in magazines like Fast Company, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, National Geographic, and we also could touch the general public through those publications as well. So it helped kind of do a couple of things for us in those particular ads.
Excellent. And one other, I think, it asked about the budgets. It asked about budgets. we have a question, how can I really be a challenger? It seems like everything mentioned here would cost a 6 or 7 figure marketing budget. Can challenger branding be done on a shoestring, do you think? Mike?
I mean, you have to put it in perspective, I guess. It depends where you're coming from. I mean, most of the time, if you're in that challenger position, I'd say there's probably something, particularly if it's in a product like we had or a situation like we had, you're really in an unprofitable situation, particularly for the long run. So you've got to kind of get your act together to find out what can I do to position myself differently. Now, whether it can be on a shoestring, I'd say, there's a lot of things you can do in terms of performance that actually aren't all advertising and PR, like we mentioned with our Cornerstone commitment. But I still think you do got to put something out there. I mean, there's got to be a budget that's got to be put together. There's risk associated with it, and there is cost associated with it. But I don't think it's got to be extravagant.
Yeah, and I would just comment from my perspective. One of the 8 credos of successful challenger branding is sacrifice, and sacrifice relates or can relate directly to a budget. And you'll have to, as a challenger, you'll have to pick your battles. You'll have to pick them carefully. Your challenge journey may last more than 1 year. In fact, it may last more than 5. But you may wish to target a market that you feel you can grow in. You feel that the leader is vulnerable. You may wish to challenge the brands below you and try to take share away from them as you grow against the leader. So I think the fundamentals remain true whether you have lots and lots of money or not so much money to spend. Sacrifice, picking your battles, building a lighthouse identity, and you may not be able to do that with millions in media money, but you may be able to do that selectively and in a targeted fashion, more so than say your competitor would in that particular audience category. And I think that's it. I think that's all the questions. So everyone, we hope you enjoyed the discussion today. If challenger brands fascinate you as much as they do us, then here's some great reading on the subject. The definitive book, Eating the Big Fish by Adam Morgan, of course. Another great book, Disruption by Jean-Marie Drew. The Challenger's Almanac by Mark and Emily Anderson. And I encourage you to visit our blog, B2B Brains. There's a lot of great content, not only on Challenger brands, but on all things B2B. So thanks to all of you who joined today, and thanks again to our panelist, Jan Martin of Domtar Paper Company, and Mike Gambino, formerly of Passant Seymour Legrand. And from me, good challenging, everyone.